Hey there, this is Alex from Voyage Financial. In today's little webinar, I'm going to be explaining what a mortgage broker actually does in case you're confused and why you should use one. Hopefully, I'm not going to go for much longer than 20, we'll say 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. I do tend to waffle on. But what does a mortgage broker do? Why should we use one? Let's get stuck in. So today, basically, the agenda is going to be number one, in my opinion, the most important thing that we need to be thinking about as mortgage brokers and when you're figuring out whether you should use one or not. Number two, what we do, of course. Number three, why use one, of course. And then number four, I'll run through some common questions that we hear quite often. So the webinar outcomes that we're looking for is to really, I want you to understand whether engaging a broker is a good idea, number one. Obviously to understand what we do and then to have any of your questions answered. So that's all pretty straightforward. Well, let's go back here. So let's start with what most people think brokers do. And I'm not sure whether you think this, but we tend to feel or understand this when people start to engage with us. This is quite often what we'll hear. So we commonly hear, well, brokers just help me find the best interest rate. So we'll quite often get clients or potential clients contacting us and just asking for interest rates right off the bat. We might get people contacting us and saying, hey, I've seen this rate online. Can you get me that rate? Quite often the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no, because usually we can't actually answer that question straight up anyway, because as brokers, we've actually got a legal duty to go much deeper than just saying we can do this rate or we can't do this rate. And quite often the rate that you think that you can get, the rate that's publicly advertised by lots of different lenders, once you actually delve into the terms and conditions and the policies and the sort of people that they'll actually accept, we sometimes find that those rates aren't actually available. Or if you delve into the fine print, they're for properties and finance where you've got certain loan to value ratios, etc. Another one might be, I've done my research and I can just do this myself. And of course, if you know exactly what your personal situation and circumstances are, if you understand finance and lending and tax and all those bits and pieces, and you can probably figure out a lot of it yourself. But the reason that people come to brokers is because we can do pretty much all of that straight away. We do it as our profession. We know what we're doing, and we can give you the answer that it might take you days or weeks and talking to multiple different lenders to figure out. So most people have this opinion because, and I should clarify, most people have these opinions because that's what some brokers do. Nothing wrong with that at all. Some brokers are just geared different ways. They might be purely rates focused, and that's the only thing that they offer to the market. Again, totally fine if that's what they do. Brokers sort of have different niches and they will target different things. And so one of the things that we do at Voyage is we look to actually develop a really long-term, strong relationship. We want to be more than just transactional. We want to actually assist you across your financial journey. And we want to be the ones that you're thinking of when you think can I do this? Can I do that? Should I buy this? Should I buy that? Should we renovate? Should we refinance? We want to be the ones that you think, I'm just going to give one of the brokers at Voyage a call and see what they think, because we also have ties to financial planning. But a lot of this I'll explain as we go through. So it's also important to realize actually that a loan product is a commodity. At the end of the day, you can go, if we were to offer you a loan from Westpac or a loan from AMP or a loan from Macquarie or Suncorp or Bankwest, you can go to that lender directly to get that loan product. And there's also 10,000 plus other brokers available in the market who will quite happily write that loan as well. So you can get the same thing from multiple different people, multiple different brokers, and from the actual source itself. So it's a fair question. What does a broker actually do? Why shouldn't I just go straight to the source? Now, the most important thing, this, in my opinion, different brokers will have different ideas on this, but for us our brokers, our advisors at Voyage, the most important thing is, and I sort of feel that brokers and borrowers who do a lot of that sort of that really rate-focused type lending, they're sort of missing the point. Many brokers and banks don't really have the system skills or experience to be a long-term partner to your financial success. Some brokers do. Banks usually certainly don't, because they don't have the financial planning element built in. Usually at banks, they're being shuffled through different departments and through different loan portfolios quite often. So it's really difficult to develop a long-term relationship. But quite often, some of those bankers and some brokers, not all, a lot of brokers are really, really fantastic. Most brokers are actually fantastic, but they can be quite transactional. They're not relationship-based. They may not have a level of client care that we have, right through the loan process and post loan settlement as well. They may not have connections to financial planning. They may not be able to identify opportunities to start investing, etc. And again, most brokers do. Most brokers are fantastic. And I would highly recommend going to pretty much any broker before going to a lender. But really, the most important thing for us is actually trust. So brokering is all about relationship. We want to help you for years to come, and we understand that when someone contacts a broker, we get to know you quite sort of financially intimately quite quickly, and you tell us stuff in terms of what your income is, what your debts are. Quite often, whether we're looking at buying a house or whether we're looking at buying an investment, wrapped up in that conversation is also a conversation about what you're actually wanting for your future, what you're trying to achieve over the next 4 or 5 years, whether that's having children or retiring from work or whatever it is. This is stuff that you may not actually tell. You might not have told your family or your friends. Quite often, when we're seeing couples, husband and wife, or partners, there are sort of different ideas on what people, what that couple actually sees as financial success or financial security. So we understand that as soon as you start contacting us and start talking to us, you're starting to talk about stuff that you wouldn't necessarily talk about with anyone else. And we understand, there's definitely a level of trust and confidentiality that comes with that. We get to know your income, middle names, plans for family. Quite often we hear about financial situations that people are in that they haven't really told anyone else. So we understand, as I said, there's a level of trust and confidentiality and sensitivity that comes with that. And that demands trust very, very, very soon, quite often from the first contact, the first phone call in our relationship. It's also important to note as well, if we don't have that trust, you've got to trust that we're working in your best interest, because if we don't do that, typically clients, I've been doing this for over a decade, typically we find clients can pick that up pretty quickly. They sort of know if we're not doing the best that we can by you, or if we're trying to force you into a particular loan product. Usually clients can pick that up, and that trust is just instantly gone. And obviously we lose business, we lose any potential referrals, we lose your future business, not just your current business, but your future business as well. So it's not in our best interest to try and force you into a loan product or encourage you to borrow more than you potentially should. So we're always very circumspect about that, and we handle those sorts of conversations because quite often people will ask us, what would you do? We've got to answer those questions really, really, really carefully, because we don't want to be seen as trying to influence you in a particular direction that could potentially benefit us and not you. So if you're the sort of person who really struggles to trust and will, really second guess everything that we do and shop us around and our rates around to other brokers, I'm going to be completely clear with you. We're probably not the brokers for you. There are plenty of brokers, like online brokers, online lenders. If you're just looking for the best interest rate, you don't care about anything else, there are plenty of other options for you. We may not be the best one for you. Okay, so hopefully that answers the most important thing. The next one is what we actually do. So let's have a look at a typical scenario. So let's say that you want to buy a house or you want to start an investment portfolio. And after having a bit of, having an idea, you actually want to buy something, and you have a bit of a look online, you realize that you need to know how much you can borrow, and then you come to us. So this is pretty much what we do. Number one, right for the very first phone call, we need to get to know you, and we need to get to know you as quickly as we possibly can. What are you trying to achieve? What's your current scenario? How much do you earn? What assets do you have? Do you have any kids? What are your income expectations over the next couple of years? We'd also like to know, who else have you spoken to? What's your level of education around lending and property? Because we don't want to spend time on the phone explaining, like, this is what a loan to value ratio is, and this is what lender's mortgage insurance is, if you have already spoken to a bunch of people, and if you already know that to a really quite deep level, because we don't want to be condescending, and we don't want to waste your time, and obviously we don't want to waste our time either. So we want to know, who else have you spoken to, how much, what's your general education, and that way we can guide you and we can take you through the correct journey to ensure that you've got the information in front of you that you need to make the best decision. Okay, so that's step one. Step two is really then determining what you actually can do. So this is mostly about pure borrowing and purchasing capacity. We'll have a look at your borrowing capacity, and this may be in the very first phone call that we have with you. Usually it's after that first phone call, we'll ask for a few bits and pieces of information, and then we'll come back to you with a bit of a scenario with your, all the information that I'm giving you in this slide. But borrowing capacity, we would like to know deposit amounts. We can let you know what your lending limits are. We can let you know what your repayment options are. Usually we don't go at this stage too deep on what particular lenders and particular features, unless we're really, really clear that we're doing a refinance, or if you've got a particular property that you have made an offer on or are about to make an offer on, then we can start to do that work. But Usually when people contact us, it's more along the lines of like, I'm thinking about buying, I'm looking at potentially doing something. And so it doesn't make sense to drill too many layers deep, because by the time that you actually find a property, which might be in 3 months, 6 months, a year's time, all the information that we give you today, number one, is probably going to overwhelm you because there is a lot to take on. But number two, it may all have actually, or it will likely have changed to some extent by the time it's actually relevant and you are actually purchasing something. So that's step two. Step two tells us, it sort of gives us a box or the parameters in which we can move. So that's like what you can do. And then, so once we know what the parameters are, like what are our boundaries, we can then determine what you actually should do. And this is the more interesting part of the conversation. So this comes down to really your personal preference and understanding you and your goals and maybe your partner's goals as well, and trying to align those somewhat. This comes down to, this is what we can do, but should we do that? How much should we spend? Should you spend that much? Should we invest? Should you purchase to live in? Where should you live? What sort of structure should we be looking at? And then potentially, once we've actually got those bits and pieces in place, then what sort of structure, what lender, what features? But then like a big question is, what sets us up best for future outcomes? So this is sort of the really meaty part of the conversation. We would probably not have this in the first 15-minute phone call when you go to book a chat on our website. But over time, this is what we want to get to know. And this is where a mortgage broker is going to do a lot more than just like a banker or an online lender who's like, yep, it's either a yes or no. It's like, yes, we can do the loan. No, we can't. We want to go much deeper. And then we can potentially refer you off to financial planning as well, so that you can understand, because quite often we can't answer the question, like, should I start investing? That's a big question. And even as mortgage brokers, we're not really qualified to answer that question. That is more because that goes many, many, many layers deep, which is really down to like, what do I want from my life? And mortgage brokers are not really set up to answer that question. That's more of a financial planning question. And we can start to answer it and sort of give you some guiding questions and guide you down a bit of a path. But to answer that deeply is more of a financial planning question. But that sort of, this is the meaty part of the conversation. And this is where we've got our boundaries and we go, okay, well, this is what we can do, but should we actually do that? How far down that road do we want to go? And we start to look a bit more into the future, and then go like, what are we actually wanting to get out of this potential transaction? Okay, so step four then, once a decision is actually made, we then just execute that plan. So we can help you find a property, we can gather what's needed for a pre-approval or a full application, we can coordinate everything until settlement, and then we assist you beyond settlement as well. So that part's fairly straightforward. It's like, once you're in the system, we know what we're doing, we know which lender, we know which property, we know which refinance, we know that we're taking money out, we know we're doing renovations or we're building. It's fine. That's like, great. We can now just execute on the plan, and our team is exceptional at execution. All right, so hopefully that answers the question, what we actually do, and now we can get on to why actually use one. So hopefully, as I've already explained, most mortgage brokers do more than just finding the cheapest home loan. A good broker is sort of like a conductor of a suite of professionals, is the way that I like to look at it. So we are typically the first in a pretty long line of people that you need to see if you're buying a property. We are typically at the front of the line, and we can then, once you've actually found a property, we will then start coordinating all the other people that need to be involved to actually get your property settled. And believe it or not, there's actually, like, it looks like it's quite straightforward from your side of the table. From our side of the table, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes and a lot that needs to happen. A lot of people need to get involved to actually get your loan settled. So real estate agents, buyer's agents, bank staff, whether you're like looking at private bankers or credit officers or relationship managers, conveyancing or settlement agents, bank solicitors, accountants, financial planners, and obviously you sit at the center of this. And hopefully you're just seeing, you don't really see much at all. You just see stuff happen, but behind the scenes, we're actually doing a lot to ensure that your loan settles on time, settles hopefully stress-free, although we can't guarantee that. Sometimes stuff just goes wrong. But we're doing as much as we can to actually like conduct the orchestra and make sure that all the people involved with settling your loan are doing what they need to do when they need to do it. And it's, as I've sort of already intimated, it's really about more than just finding the cheapest loan. A good broker will be able to access products potentially unavailable or unknown to you. So better rates, different structures, different features, different policies. We can put different ideas in front of you as well. Sitting down with us is sort of like sitting down with 20, 25, 30 plus lenders all at the same time, because you come to us and we can usually, honestly, when someone comes to us, within 4 or 5 minutes, because our brokers are all really experienced, we can go like, yeah, we know exactly what we're doing with this. Maybe not exactly, but we know 80 to 90%. Like, as soon as you start talking to us, whatever your situation is or your scenario, there's going to be a heap of lenders that aren't suitable, aren't available, aren't appropriate. That leaves us with a much narrower band of lenders, and we can determine that very, very, very quickly. And so it's just much quicker talking to a good, experienced broker. And then a good broker is actually going to remember you and work with you for years. So, we've got pretty extensive files on all of our clients. You don't ever really need to fully re-explain your scenario, because we know your scenario, over 1, 2, 5, 10 years, we know your scenario, we know you really, really well. We work to keep your interest rates low, because that's in our best interest that you stick with us. We're going to tell you when not to do things. So if we've developed a relationship with you and we know you as one of your advisors, and in a couple of years' time, you come to us and say, hey, look, I've got this crazy idea. We're going to go buy like farmland out in the country. And we know you, and we know, well, that's not really, you've never mentioned this before. That's probably a bit of a thought bubble. Trust us, this happens more often than you think. That's a bit of a thought bubble. Probably, maybe let's just like spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months even reconsidering this idea, and we can just act as a bit of a sounding board. So potentially helping you avoid making sort of snap, silly, potentially unwise decisions. And we're going to help you identify good investments and help you invest sensibly. We've also got a good team of people behind us as well. So settlement specialists, compliance, admin, credit analysts. Like, a good broker has a whole bunch of, you're seeing the broker, you've got most of your relationship with the broker, but behind them at Voyage and a lot of other good brokerages as well, there's a whole team of people that actually are assisting you and have your best interests at heart. All right, so common questions, and we'll see if we can land this at 20 minutes. How do I get paid? So typically we will do something. Usually it's free for you. Sometimes we do have to charge like an engagement fee or a pre-approval fee, depending on our volumes, depending on what's going on in the market. Especially at the moment, we're doing a lot of pre-approvals that are needing to be extended and extended and extended, which means that we do a lot of work that we don't actually get paid for. So at times we may need to look at charging. Don't worry about that though. It's still, even if we're having to charge you a little bit, it always is like an absolute bargain. Once your loan settles though, the lender, the way that we make most of our money is that the lender will pay us an amount similar to the amount that they would have paid their staff to meet you, analyze your options, collect all of your data and documentation, submit, follow up, etc., etc. So to be crystal clear, payment is split into an upfront and a trail commission. 0.65% of the loan balance comes to us upfront, and then 0.12% of the loan balance is paid to us on an ongoing monthly basis. That's pretty straightforward. It doesn't affect your interest rates or anything. Really important that I mention here, it's clawback. So if you discharge your loan within the first, typically 12 to 18 months, we will actually get clawed back for all the money that we've paid you. All the money that's been paid to us. So if you're looking at selling or refinancing, please get in contact with us. We can try and help you out as much as we can. It sucks if we see that we've helped you out, we've done a heap of work, and then a year later you've sold the property or refinanced or done something, and we see all that money taken out of our account. That's usually hours or days and days and days, and not just the broker's work, but all the people who sit behind us, days of work that we then just don't get paid for. So please let us know if you're looking at doing anything like that. All right, so does this, if we're getting paid commissions from the bank, does this payment mean that you're paying for us anyway? Answer is no. We can access the same rates, features, products that you get if you went to the bank directly, but sometimes with the policies, access to policies that you can't get directly. How many lenders do we use? Well, we've got over 40 available to us. Typically, we use around 7 to 8, mostly because we know that they provide a really good spread for our clients. They offer really good rates, policy, features, speed, support, future plans, etc. And because most of our brokers are niched in a particular area, it means that we know, some of those lenders just aren't appropriate or suitable at all. If we're niching down, we know the policies of 8 to 10 lenders really, really, really well. It enables us to operate quickly, be very certain with what we do, and ultimately that leads to a better experience for you. Okay, so next question, aren't purely online lenders better or cheaper? Answer is sometimes, but not usually. So online lenders claim to be cheaper because they have fewer overheads. And while this is true, they're typically not as cheap as they make themselves out to be. They're also cheaper because they don't deal with a wide variety of scenarios. So anything really outside of their specific lane, which is usually really, really safe vanilla loans, they just don't deal with. And they will also jack up your rate once you settle. So CBA's online unloan product is a really good example of this. They will put you in a loan that they'll then jack up 2 or 3 months down the track, or typically a year down the track. And I've got a whole separate video on this that you can go and find. It should be somewhere in our YouTubes. Okay, so next question, what you just put me into a loan that pays you the most? Answer is no. As I've explained with the commissions, they all pay, like there might be some minor variations. We don't know what those variations are because it's buried in like commission agreement documents. It's not relevant to us. A couple of $100 here or there doesn't make any difference to us really materially, and we want to make sure that you're getting the best option and available, the best option for you as we've explained. Okay, so do you benefit by getting me to borrow more? No, we get paid on the balance of the loan a set period after the loan settles. So to explain this, if you borrow $800,000, but you have an extra $100,000 that you deposit into the offset or redraw account the day after settlement, like we may have encouraged you to borrow more, let's say 800,000 instead of 700,000. If you've got that extra 100,000, that goes straight into the redraw. You decide, you've got spare cash. Obviously, you want to put it in redraw. We get paid on the $700,000. So it doesn't, we don't benefit at all. If that doesn't make sense, I can explain that more on the phone call that we have, or one of our brokers can. But the answer is no, we don't benefit because we only get paid net of the amount, not the whole loan amount that we've actually borrowed or asked for. Why should I trust you? Because we grow our finance business when our clients want to keep using us year after year and refer their friends and colleagues. Like that's how we grow our business. And if we don't act in your best interest, then you won't use us. So it's a pretty straightforward equation from our perspective. And also we're actually legally obliged to do so, which is the best interest duty, which is a full legal sort of compliance and framework that we have to follow. Last question, why should I use you over any other bank? Hopefully I've made that pretty clear. We're really open with our education, with what we get paid, with the professionalism of our brokers, with the team that we've got sitting behind us. If you're a doctor, we actually know medical really, really deeply as well. We've been around for over a decade. We've got all our accreditations and legal licenses. You'll see us, hopefully all over our socials. We're pretty active on there. So, it's likely that a lot of your colleagues use us. Talking to us, as I've said, is like talking to a dozen lenders at the same time. And our service offering goes beyond just finding a loan. We want to help you across all areas of your financial world as well. That is the end of this presentation. I didn't get to 20 minutes, apologies. But if any of that sounds good, then what I'd love you to do is just go to the website, click on book chat, book in a chat with us. You'll see all of our brokers and advisors on there, and we look forward to helping you with your property journey. Thanks.